You're watching the legal breakdown. So, Glenn, Trump has claimed in the New York Attorney General's trial that he's going to testify. That said, the guy just stayed for all of 2.5 days before ducking out of his trial and leaving the state of New York. How do you square these two things? Like him claiming that he'll testify while at the same time refusing to actually attend the trial that he claims to want to testify in?
Yeah, the answer is you really can't square these two things. Here's the thing. You can't miss huge chunks of your trial and then testify in an informed way. You're going to have no firsthand understanding of what the evidence was that was presented against you. So could he do it? Yes. Is it a good idea to do it? Absolutely not. Will he take his attorney's advice and decline to testify? Who knows? But, if he chooses to testify, Brian, one of three things will happen. One, he will get up there and in non-responsive fashion, he will just spout out whatever he wants to spout out in the courtroom. Let me tell you, I have had defendants take the stand, including in a RICO case, and start yelling and screaming, not even waiting for the questions. Why? He just wanted to get the message out that he wanted to get out. Doesn't that sound like something Donald Trump might do? So he'll either do that or he will testify in thoughtful, responsive, and truthful fashion. Yeah, he's not going to do that. Or I think most likely what we're going to see is he is threatening to testify. He has said it publicly a number of times now. But when the time comes for him to testify, and Judge Engoron says, Defendant Trump, now is your opportunity. Do you wish to testify? Here's what I predict his lawyers will say, because I've heard this in courtrooms dozens of times. Judge, because my opponent's case, this would be Attorney General Tish James, because my opponent's case is so weak and they have failed on so many fronts to prove my client liable, Mr. Trump has decided he need not testify in this case. So what they do is they make a little mini speech, even though it's not likely to be truthful or supported by the facts, but they will make that little speech and use that as a vehicle to explain why Donald Trump has changed his mind and he won't be testifying at all.
Well, look, if you don't think that he's operating in good faith in any of this whole process and that he doesn't ultimately plan to testify, what do you presume has been the purpose of him even being there?
Fundraising, grifting. Every decision Donald Trump makes, it has nothing to do with mounting the best defense he can in a court of law. It has everything to do with, burnishing his image in, the court of public opinion among his base, among his supporters, among the people who are still foolish enough and gullible enough to continue to send Donald Trump their hard-earned dollars. I will never understand what motivates people to do that, but I have a feeling whatever Donald Trump says and does in that courtroom is to maximize his grift potential.
He was there for 2.5 days, as I mentioned. He got to do these little press hits in the hallways, and he got to soak up all the attention that he's always so desperate to soak up. But at the same time, he did get himself hit with a gag order. Net, do you think that this whole play here by Donald Trump redounded to his benefit, or do you think it hurt him?
Hurt him badly. Here's why. He has already lost the lion's share of this case. Judge Engoron already entered a summary judgment on a part of this case, telling Donald Trump, you lose. I'm canceling your certificates to do business. I'm ordering the dissolution of your LLCs, your companies. I am sanctioning your lawyers with money sanctions. And now we will see just how big a fine, how big a financial penalty you will have to pay. But I'll tell you, I think the biggest loss for Donald Trump is getting hit with that gag order that you just mentioned, because Judge Engoron, a New York State court judge, basically just showed up all of the other judges. He showed them how you impose a gag order in real time to stop Donald Trump's dangerous rhetoric and his dangerous posts. I have a feeling this will, if not open the floodgates to other gag orders, make the other judges much more receptive and indeed more comfortable in issuing gag orders of their own. So Donald Trump, it was kind of a lose-lose proposition, him attending this trial.
You know, you had just mentioned the fact that Donald Trump effectively lost this case. I mean, Judge Engoron already handed down partial summary judgment against him in the major charge against him, which was the fraud charge. Now it's basically to determine damages and a few other minor charges. But if that's the case, why is this thing going all the way until December?
That's a great question. And I think one of the reasons is because Donald Trump and his lawyers overinflated, sound familiar? Overinflated the number of witnesses they intend to present. They said, Judge Engoron, we think we could call as many as 127 witnesses. So Judge Engoron, receiving that information, had to make a decision. He said, okay, well, then I think this trial might run through December. You know what? Donald Trump's lawyers are not calling 127 witnesses. So I suspect we will see this trial wrap up, not in December, not even in November. We may see this case wrap up in October.
And do you have any indication as to whether we would be likely to see a number in the damages category hew closer to that 250 million? Do you expect more, less? What do you expect here, just judging by the tea leaves?
I expect more, and here's why. Attorney General Tish James said that she was seeking a minimum of $250 million in money penalties and money damages. I have a feeling when it's all said and done, when Judge Engoron sees the massive amount of business fraud that Donald Trump and his adult sons engaged in over the years, he could go significantly higher than $250 million.
And finally, do you think that there's a world in which Donald Trump's lawyers do allow him, or his kids for that matter, to come back and testify?
Ultimately, people need to know that it is always the client's decision whether to testify or not. An attorney can only give their best advice. The client is not obliged to follow that advice. In fact, sometimes, Brian, defendants will allege that their attorneys browbeat them into declining to testify, and they will claim that means they received ineffective assistance of counsel. That is rarely a winning claim, but it's a claim that is often leveled by defendants once they lose a case. I think it's very unlikely that Donald Trump will take the stand, but remember, he did sit for a deposition, so there may be some testimony from the deposition that Attorney General Letitia James and her lawyers decide to put in front of Judge Engoron.
Okay, and this is my actual last question here. Donald Trump has made this claim that he was not entitled to a jury trial. At the same time, we've seen reporting that what the attorneys had to do going into this was to check off a box requesting a jury trial. Can I get your take on this?
My take on this is that Donald Trump's defense attorneys probably dropped the ball. But at the end of the day, there's no way you want to present this case to a jury of 12 tax-paying New Yorkers who have been defrauded by Donald Trump and his adult sons for decades. You know what? This may have been a blessing in disguise, because
if it's even true, a blessing in disguise, if it's even true.
If it's even true. But if he thinks, he's going to go down in flames in front of Judge Engoron, I think a jury would like Donald Trump even less.
Yeah, I think the New York term for that would be get the fuck out of here. So we'll see what happens.
That's a legal term. I think that's a legal term.
That is the legal term. Yeah, just for the New York bar. Glenn, thank you so much for the insight here. For anybody watching, if you want to stay on top of this trial as it continues to play out, make sure to subscribe. The links are right here on this screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.